What I would say that well, it's interesting because I have a past that's somewhat well known. You know,
Mhm.
I'm in Iowa. I'm in Waterloo, Iowa. Not too many other people were on Saturday Night Live. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I mean, I've got a niche. And I've done a lot of television shows in my career. So when I came back here, everybody kind of wanted me. Oh, Gary, the old SNL guy. Oh, you had a series. Oh, you're on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Will you do this and this and this? So I sort of find myself as the keynote speaker for economic development programs or youth motivation programs, simply because I fashioned a career, you know, out of nothing.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I have here Mr. Gary Kroeger. Now,
hey, you got the name right. Kroger, long O.
Yeah, well, we have Kroger's grocery store here.
Well,
so
I know you do in Texas. Let's go Kroegering, right?
That's right. Let's go Kroger.
That could be the name of this episode is Let's Go Kroegering.
That's a thought. I think
it's
I
a
might
good thought.
it.
And I don't think it's ever been used in relation to me.
I'm writing that down.
Let's go Kroegering.
How about that? I got my first idea. But I remember this guy from Saturday Night Live. I used to watch that in junior high and high school. And that was when I think that was probably the last era that it was really, really funny. Although I did enjoy Mike Myers and Dana Carvey.
Well, you know, I think Kyle, every era has its own flavor.
Well,
you know, we were right on the heels of the first 5 years. They were very maverick and very breakthrough. We hadn't seen anything like it. So they were very original. We more or less tried to replicate that style. I don't think, however, today that style particularly plays. They're much more topical. They're much more, you know, this is a YouTube generation where there's so much practice at humor and comedy that it's become much more focused. I would say offhand more subtle than when I was on the show.
Nah, I'm sorry. Reference.
So that's how you disagree. I like that. Nah.
I just happened to go back and watch that clip, and I was like, okay, I got to pull
me with. Yeah, that's where the kid that didn't want to do anything.
Yeah, give up $1 million because you didn't want to sign an agreement.
Right, and I was, you know, I vaguely remember it, and it was my sketch, and I just thought it would be funny about a teenager, and I could relate to it, who just didn't want to get off the couch, no matter what was happening. It just went, nah. You've won $1 million. Sign here. Pause. Nah. And then I made some rude comment that I was going to go upstairs and diddle with my fiddle or something. I don't know. It was
that was it.
Cheap joke. But I did think that the premise of just a kid that would just not interested today. Nah. I still think it's kind of funny.
Well, I mean, I like the comedy where it's just goofy, you know, just plain old goofy. And, you know, what you had the one where you did with the nose hairs. And
I knew you were going to say that. I had a character that looked like an old man, a crusty old man in the lobby of a building in New York with all the people going by, and it looked like it was a shoe shine stand, and people would go there and go, no, I don't shine shoes. I trim people's nose hairs, which just seems so specific and esoteric. Like who would do that? But he had a clientele, and Kathleen Turner, as I recall, let me trim her nose hairs. Beautiful Kathleen Turner, and here I am putting a drill up her nose, and you know.
The iconic people that were on that show during that era. I mean, you did scenes with Christopher Reeves and
that's a favorite of mine. Chris Reeve became a good friend, really.
Really?
Well, I mean, during that week, you know, we went out to dinner, and at one time it was just the two of us. And we're at a nice restaurant, and I said, hey, Chris, you know what? I adored Superman as a little boy so much that I used to wear my Superman suit under my clothes to school in second grade, because I was kind of a frail little kid. And I thought, well, I honestly thought in my second grade mind that if I unbuttoned my shirt and somebody saw the S, that they'd go, oh my God, Kroeger is Superman. Let's not mess with him. But the story I told him is, but I also had the cape on and it would bunch up in the back of my pants. And one day, Julie Nielsen, a little classmate, said, Gary Kroeger, are you wearing a diaper? Gary Kroeger's wearing a diaper. And I couldn't say, no, it's my cape. It's my Superman cape. So I had to stick with the humiliation of people thinking that I was wearing a diaper because I couldn't, reveal that I was actually Superman.
Well, second grade, I think I was in the Incredible Hulk because I remember going home and shredding my pants to be the Hulk. That was when I wasn't being Steve Austin. So.
Oh yeah. Well, you're younger than I am, so you were target audience. When I was on the show, you were in high school, maybe?
I think I was about
Younger?
junior high school.
Yeah. Well, that was really our target audience. We were kind of going for like 14-year-olds, thinking, that's the demographic that's going to enjoy this show and this humor and go out and buy products and things like that. So you would have been into Hulk Hogan and all that stuff. Stone Cold.
I will say I did watch a little bit of Hulk Hogan, but I stopped watching wrestling right after Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah.
And that was, Junkyard Dog and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and all them guys.
Sure. My youngest son, he's not into it anymore, but my youngest son long ago was just totally into pro wrestling. So his room was just a temple of all those guys.
Did he ever watch the Glow Girls?
I'm sure of it.
Okay, ask him if he knows who Roxy Astor is, because
I'm sure he will. I mean, he's only 18 now, but he was, when you're 9 years old and you're into anything, the history, everything that ever happened. My son could tell you about the Viking when it was just cable access having pro wrestling. And that's before my time.
Well, I barely remember when cable came in because I was married before I got cable. So we only had I think at tops 5 channels.
Yeah.
And
you were married before you had cable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to put a perspective on that. Married before cable. I don't remember when cable came around.
Well, I think
it seemed like it's been around as long as, my Philco television.
Cable, I believe, started in the 70s, but I don't think it got real popular until like the 80s came around.
I know that when I was doing SNL, I would record the show on New York cable. So, cable took over for the big 3. Yeah, in the 80s, I think.
Yeah. I do remember going to my cousin's house to watch MTV when it's first launched. So
now it's streaming.
Now it's
a whole new ballgame.
Now it's reality shows. There's no
it's reality shows, but it's the platforms are all streaming. I don't even know what I have when I turn on the TV and choose which icon is going to watch today, and then there are just a zillion choices, most of which I didn't even know I subscribed to.
Yeah.
So
I actually switched
great,
to that,
I suppose, but I'm a little confused.
I switched to the apps because there's not a whole lot that I watch on television anymore. There's just a few things, and most of it's history. And we have one, and it's actually a free app that I've gone back and started watching all those old shows from the 60s and 70s. That's been cool.
Well, those were the shows when I was a boy, and I do watch those. I watch MeTV. I watch reruns of the Andy Griffith Show all the time. I've been watching the Beverly Hillbillies lately and Green Acres, Gilligan's Island.
I just finished.
I try to indoctrinate my children, but they just don't relate. It was a different era, and they just don't see it as funny.
For us, it was fresh. Even when I saw the reruns of My Favorite Martian, it was still fresh television.
Ray Walston, Bill Bixby.
Everything now, it's mostly just remakes of stuff we watched 20 years
Well, it
ago.
certainly seems that way. You know, the basic premise of a situation comedy of you've got somebody kind of normal and somebody who isn't. You know, it's that chemistry. But my favorite Martian was one of my favorite shows, and that's early 60s. So I was just a tyke at that time. But the fact that somebody was from Mars and living at home and occasionally his antenna would go up. I mean, I just thought that was magical. I was jealous. I wish that I had antenna.
Right.
Right.
I'd be glad to twitch my nose and make things happen. So,
and a lot of those girls were the first crushes. Elizabeth Montgomery with that cute little nose twitching, but the Petticoat Junction girls.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, that was just, to this day, that's my standard. You know, one of the three.
Lindsay Wagner and Linda Carter.
Oh yeah, Bionic Woman.
Farrah Fawcett. Oh,
yeah. Oh yeah. The glory days of television.
There's people.
Television crushes.
Right. There's people listening to this right now have no idea who the hell we're talking about.
Well, I stopped watching regular TV after Seinfeld. You know, but and I watched Curb Your Enthusiasm HBO. I was on an episode of it, but I'd watched it previous to that and still do. If it's coming back, I'll watch the next season. But, you know, I have specific shows. I watched all the Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones. I mean, I watch that stuff now. But regular TV, Big Three network, I never saw an episode of Friends. Sorry, never did.
I haven't either. My wife has seen all of them. I have not seen one episode.
Can't say it. You know, it's what I've seen looks funny. It just never captured me. You know, I stopped watching, you know, around 2000.
I did watch The Office, though.
Okay, I lied because I did watch The Office, although never when it was on.
I haven't stopped.
I stream it, and now I binge watch it when I have an opportunity, and I'm addicted to it now. Yes.
Now there are a few shows now that I've caught on some of the apps. I do like the Ghosts. I don't know if you've seen that one. The one where, so on CBS, I believe, there's this couple that move into a house this girl inherited, and there's a bunch of ghosts from different eras in time that live there, and she had an accident and hit her head, and she gets to see them and talk to them and that kind of stuff. I kind of like that one.
Good enough. Works for me. I love the thought of having an accident and seeing things you wouldn't otherwise see. You know, I still think that I could have some sort of accident which would open up 90% of my brain and become the world's smartest person as a result. I'm still holding out for some sort of accident to change my perspective.
Well, didn't Kurt Russell become the computer who wore tennis shoes?
The computer who wore tennis shoes. Wasn't he also the world's strongest man for having taken something that he made in high school lab or something like that? Yep. Well, I'm not going to ingest anything to make this happen, and I'm not going to force an accident, but I'm just saying if something happened that some miraculous transformation would take place, you know, I'm looking for something new.
And What We Do in the Shadows. If you haven't seen that, you need to watch it. Not. It's hilarious.
All right.
Taiki Waititi.
I'm writing these things down. I'm taking your recommendations.
That one is on FX, I believe.
Okay. I'm sure I've got that one. And
other than that, I watch history shows and Gordon Ramsay.
I get a kick out of Gordon Ramsay. He's not someone that I seek out, but I basically, when I go on to look at the menu of all the options, I look for historical shows. I do like period dramas a little bit, but really I like documentaries. I've been watching one on New York City. I love History Channel stuff, anything on the Civil War, World War II. I'm a junkie for that stuff.
Oh man, I got my grandpa's World War II memorabilia too.
Really?
When he was in the Navy, I got his certificate from when he passed the equator. All kinds of cool stuff, man.
Well, I've got my see, that would be your grandfather. That was my father and uncle's generation for me. So I have my dad's old hat, his dress hat from the Army, and medals and things and marksman and stuff like that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
cherish it.
What are you up to nowadays?
Well, I'm semi-retired. I was very much into politics for a lot of years, writing. I ran for office, didn't win. Mainly, community work, charity fundraising and things like that. I sort of do whatever I want, not because I'm independently wealthy, but, I collect my pension and things like that. My wife has a great job. So I really have the luxury of doing things that I want to do. And one of those things is I love working with kids. I particularly like to go into high schools, colleges, help kids formulate concepts of success, tools to build success, teamwork, self-confidence. I do a lot of improv classes, not only for students, but also for corporations to learn how to work together better, to active listening skills. And I sort of formulated that into sort of a cottage industry in a way, because I'm busy all the time. And I find it very gratifying because you see the light go on in people's eyes when they learn something. And when you play improv games, sometimes people learn to listen. They learn to trust themselves. They learn to trust other people. They learn to be more sensitive to what's going on, more attuned. And you see them find tools or put tools in their new success toolbox that they're going to use, to sometimes help their career, but sometimes to find out what that career is going to be. So I have done a lot of stuff this last week doing that. And I also put on murder mysteries around the state of Iowa. And that was just something I fell into. And now I'm booked all the time, just writing original, whodunits that are immersive to the people that come there. It's an ongoing improvisation with local actors that I hire. And so, that's kind of the answer to your question. I wish I could say that I'm now a doctor of psychology or, pancreatic medicine, but no, I'm kind of a journeyman.
Well, I have a lot of life coaches and business coaches that come on the show.
Life coaching is kind of where I'm going without really sitting down and going, okay, what's my program? But I just haven't had to because I've just been so busy.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's a guy that I had on, his name is Doug Schwim, and he ended up going to my wife's company and doing one of those things. And he is a comedian for sure. Hilarious. They actually thanked me for introducing him to my wife to get him to play at their function.
Awesome.
And I think comedy brings people together. And I think it also sticks in their brain, just like music does.
That's right. Well said.
I don't know. Can you kind of tell exactly what you do when you go in there?
What I would say that well, it's interesting because I have a past that's somewhat well known.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Iowa. I'm in Waterloo, Iowa. Not too many other people were on Saturday Night Live. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I mean, I've got a niche. And I've done a lot of television shows in my career. So when I came back here, everybody kind of wanted me. Oh, Gary, the old SNL guy. Oh, you had a series. Oh, you're on Curb Your Enthusiasm. Will you do this and this and this? So I sort of find myself as the keynote speaker for economic development programs or youth motivation programs, simply because I fashioned a career, out of nothing. I mean, I didn't grow up in Hollywood. I didn't grow up with parents who were producers. I had to sort of find the sticks and build the hut myself. And so they asked me if I have some inspirational things that I can share. Well, most of the time now they've heard me at something else and they say, oh, would you bring your story to this organization or that organization?
Right.
So I don't really ever tell anybody what it is that I do. They just ask me if I'll do it.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I have no complaints. I mean, my wife keeps saying, honey, you've really got to create a website and put these programs. And I go, yeah, you're right. And it would probably blow up and I could make a whole bunch more money. But I'm busy and I'm happy. So, and I also podcast. I podcast with a friend. And we kind of pull our old friends from the entertainment business on, and we talk about how they created their careers, you know, producers, actors, writers, and people find that very interesting. And that, you know, that's another little iron I have in the fire.
Yeah, so you keep up with those guys that you run on SNL?
Yeah, but it's hard. Again, I'm in the Midwest. I'm not in the thick of it anymore.
Yeah.
I go out there once in a while. We have dinner. I keep tabs. Facebook has been wonderful in the sense that it gives us an opportunity to daily say, how you doing? So I'm in touch with everybody, but it hasn't been personal touch as much as it used to be.
Well, you know, I try to keep up, but I'm like you, if it's not a hello on Facebook, you know, and plus my circle has kind of changed over the years. I try to keep more positive, motivated people around me. And it's not that I don't love my old friends. I still do, but I have to love them from afar because
I get it.
You know, I was alcoholic. I was a drug addict. I try to stay away from that. I want to stay sober, and I don't want to be around all that. You know,
I respect that a great deal, and that's the way to do it. You can have memories and connections that you made and thank them for the rest of your life. I didn't have that journey to go through, but you know, I'm 65 years old. I've been through a lot of journeys. You know, my high school friends are from 45, 50 years ago. Well, we've all had kids. Many of them have grandchildren. Lives are just so different. It doesn't really lend itself to let's go hang out.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But what's been like the biggest hurdle you've ever had in your life?
Well, that's an excellent question because there are so many answers. To say what's the, you know, again, I'll keep saying I'm 65. Although I feel like I'm 25. I really honestly do.
Trade places with you.
I've been divorced, you know, that's difficult. That was a gut-wrenching experience because we had children, but I recovered and everybody's fine now. And my relationships with my kids are incredibly great. But that was definitely difficult. You know, Hollywood is a career where if you audition 60 times, you're rejected 59. You know, you get one job if you're lucky. And so you deal with all of that. The biggest hurdle for me was being a Midwestern guy, and I'm not saying I'm, you know, just the sweetest rosy-cheeked guy in the world, but I wasn't ready for the rat race. I wasn't ready for the competition. I wasn't ready for how cutthroat and competitive things were. I wasn't ready I didn't have any skills on how do you do this? I thought everybody was supposed to help each other in life. And I know that's naive, but I kind of thought that's the way it worked. And in New York and in LA, I found out, oh no, that's not it at all. And I don't blame anyone because they're all going through their thing. They're fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their careers. But it wasn't conducive to leading a healthy life. And so that was my hurdle, was trying to find a healthy physical and mental life and being in the rat race and not succumbing to things, which sometimes I did succumb to. I succumbed to a few things that, you know, I wish I hadn't done, whether it was relationships or just choices that I made that, you know, it was like, oh, why did I do that? But I was in the thick of it trying to survive. Mm-hmm. It took me having a child to grow up and finally say, okay, this is what it's about. It's not about me. I make a living and I'm going to make an honest living and I'm going to be an example for this kid who's now 23 years old, probably come in any second now. That changed everything for me. But that's not the answer to your question. The answer to your question is, yeah, navigating all of that mess that I had no skills for. And I wonder who does really, you know. High school and college can prepare you in many, many ways. But once you get into the rat race, there's a lot of things you don't know. And sometimes you rise to it, sometimes you don't. I fell on my face a lot. I think the thing I'm proudest of is the fact that, like the cliche, you can knock me down, but I'll get back up again. I found out that I do. I rose like the phoenix on several occasions. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that I can talk to you today and, feel pretty good.
Pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, I'd say that falls under awesome. It's like, you know what? Sun's out. It's going to be cold in a month, but you know what? I can deal with it now.
I hear you. It's a little bit different atmosphere here. I felt more like people were more willing to help me. But I'll have to say, moving up towards Austin, it's been a lot different because I don't know anybody up here. My wife has family and friends, and other than I know them, and they help the best they can. Most of my friends are people I talk to on Zoom or back home.
Well, I'll bet you make good friends this way, though. You're very comfortable. It's very easy to talk to you.
Oh,
and this is something completely different. Usually there's a whole bunch of questions. How do you get Saturday Night Live? But you seem to be about conversation, and that's actually quite refreshing.
Well, I think it's more natural that way. And I think people are probably tired of the same questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The same questions and the same answers.
All the guests that I have on that are famous, they've been asked the same questions a million times. And I can turn on YouTube and I can put your name in there. I could find a interview, watch the next interview, and you've been asked the same questions over and over and over. Right. I find out things about people that I don't normally find out if I just let them talk and have their time. This is your time. Yeah. You talk about what you want to talk.
Well, I appreciate that. And here I'm sitting here thinking, I want to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I want to talk about TV. No.
Well, it still strikes me as so funny at the start of this interview that you went, nah. No one in SNL started for me actually this last weekend, 40 years ago to the day.
Right.
It was 40 years ago. And that sketch was probably 38, 39 years ago. Nobody's ever mentioned it. Some people liked it at the time, but you're the first person to ever go, nah, because it relates. So on some level, you related to just some lethargic guy going, kid rather, nah, don't want to do that. No, not interested. and again, I don't want to belabor a fairly lame sketch, but it happens to everybody. It happens to all of us that there are just days where it's like, nah, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get dressed. I don't want to go outside. I don't even feel like eating today. I mean, there are just those days.
Yeah, believe me, I can relate to that very well. It's difficult, especially when you have a hard time getting around and all the other problems I'm not going to get into, but it's difficult. It's sometimes you just don't want to even wake up.
Yeah.
But I think there's somebody out there that they need a message, and I want to hopefully get that message to them, and it helps get me out of bed.
Well, that's pretty cool. Let me ask you this. What do you find in general people are responding to? What kind of a message are they looking for? Have you, in all the interviews you've done, have you found that there's something that is universal, something that people universally need, crave?
One of the things, and I will only say this because I've gotten messages, is I will get a thank you for bringing somebody on because this person has been ready to give up and they don't want to go on. Sometimes they feel like they failed at everything and they don't know why they should keep trying. And I'll have that guest that'll come on and say that one thing that makes them go, well, if they can keep going, then maybe I can keep going.
Wow. Well, now I really, now I want to say something more if I can.
Sure.
I mentioned a bit ago, you know, I was lucky in the sense that I would have about 50, 60 auditions a month. I had a good agent and I came off of SNL. But most of the time, you know, 59 times out of 60, I was rejected. No, we don't like him. He's too tall, too short, too fat, too skinny, too old, too young, whatever. Not good enough, not what we're looking for. Again and again and again. Well, that could start to wear on you. You can really, you know, everybody's somewhat insecure. And I don't think anybody goes into acting if they're not really insecure. I mean, it's something about learning to create a character that is a shield, it's a defense, because we are kind of buttery inside. And so you know, it was very difficult to look in the mirror and this kid from Iowa, you know, struggling to make a living, who was just told time after time, nope, kid, you know, I remember somebody saying, you should probably consider another career. Now, in the rear view mirror, I could say, no, I always made a living. I made a decent living and I worked for 30 years. But when you hear those things, you can get down. And LA is a big, scary city, and you can feel very isolated and very alone. So what I would think about, Kyle, in those times is I think about my family. I think about my friends. I think about my home state. I would think about all the things that used to protect me. I'd even think about things like weather. Seriously, I would think about thunderstorms and how I'd stand with my dad in the garage silently watching thunder and lightning and just being so awed and feeling so humble compared to nature. I would think about winter. I would think about sledding. I would think about Christmas. I would think about things that I hated, because when you're a kid, you know, there's things that just get in your way. But I would think about those things and think, yeah, but I did it with my friends, my family. We survived. It was part of what made me. And by thinking about those things, I always rejuvenated, because I became in touch again with who I was and how I got here. Yeah. And on some level, you realize that the tools, regardless of your situation, regardless of a physical, mental situation, or the situation of your career, we all have it in us still, always, to transcend the blues and to find joy. I know that sounds like I just opened a Hallmark card, but in the worst moments of my life, when somebody has rejected me, I've thought, you know what? The sun's going to come up tomorrow, and there's going to be something. A bird is going to sing on a windowsill, and there's something that's going to happen. I'm going to go, oh, I'm glad I saw that. My friends were all still my friends. Nobody called and said, yeah, I heard you were rejected 59 times, and hang up. I could still, I've lost my parents, but when I was younger, I could always call for that nurturing voice to say, you're such a good person. And so I would hang on to those things, and I still do. I still think of those moments. I still think when after a divorce or something, I go, you know what, as crummy as I feel, as much as I don't want to see tomorrow, if I do, something's going to happen, and I'm going to say, oh, I'm glad I stuck around for that. Yeah. And it can be as simple as this. I know I'm on my pulpit now, but you opened the door when you said people, and I'm on my pulpit. I have things, Kyle, that I can't live without. Small things. Of course, I can't live without my kids, but that's obvious. I can't live without Reese's peanut butter cups. I can't live without the Andy Griffith Show. And I can't live without the Beatles. So in my worst moment, I put on Penny Lane, I eat a peanut butter cup, and I'll find on MeTV Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show and go, God, I'm glad I'm around for this.
Yeah, that's no lie. I'll have to say that's definite on my list. The Beatles. Of course, I'm a big Kiss fan, so I gotta have Kiss around.
I'm a sock collector, and people send me weird socks. One of my favorite pairs of socks, and I was wearing them yesterday. No, not yesterday, but I wore them to the something that I did for high school students, and I didn't even realize I was wearing them. But somebody said, what are you wearing? Oh, these are my Kiss socks. Sweet. I've got Kiss socks.
I'll have to see them sometime, because
I wish I could. Yeah, they're in the dirty laundry right now.
I have some Kiss socks myself, so my whole office is nothing but Kiss stuff, and my office pops. So
awesome. Well, you've probably seen, Gene Simmons' house, right? In
I've
their
seen it
show
on
that they did.
television. Yeah.
Well, he's got in his office, he merchandised everything. I think most of
Oh,
his Kiss money comes from merchandising because he's got every Kiss action figure and everything. Kiss lunch boxes. There you go.
The action figures, the lunch
There you go.
boxes, the bobbleheads.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes it's just something like that that just gives you the little goose and you go, God, I'm glad I've got that.
Oh, and Frank Zappa. I can't live without Frank Zappa.
I love Frank Zappa, the Mothers of Invention. My favorite song at one point was I Might Be Moving to Montana Soon. Raise me up a crop of dental floss.
Raising my no, it was
waxing it
raising
down.
my
My
lonely dental floss.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, don't forget to not eat the yellow snow.
That's right. Well, I was in high school during, sort of the Zappa revolution.
Mhm.
And so when you're looking for comedy and you're looking to marry comedy with music, we would go to underground record stores, all vinyl back then, of course, and we would find Mothers of Invention and put these on and just think, oh my God, we found the guru of music and comedy. Yeah, we love Zappa too.
My God, I actually started getting a lot of people that. Well, let me back up first because I watched a Frank Zappa in the Mother's documentary.
Yeah, I watched it too.
Okay, I
Magnificent.
fell in love with it, and there was a guy on there named Billy James. Now, Billy James wrote a biography on the Mothers of Invention, and so I saw his name and I Googled it real quick. I found out he was a PR guy in South Carolina. I got his email and I said, look, I just saw the Frank Zappa documentary. I saw you wrote a book. I would love to have you on the show to talk about it. So he messages me back and he says, look, man, I don't have the equipment for it, but I have a bunch of people who would probably be perfect to come on your show. I'm like, sweet, send them my way. I just thought they would be people just getting into the business, right? One of the first people he sent me was Kevin Godley. Now, Kevin Godley was the drummer for 10cc.
Wow.
Yeah, I was
Wow.
tripping out.
So he's been on the show.
He's been on the show.
Well, that's a better guess than me.
Everybody holds their own. So, but he sent me Jeff Cotton. All right, Jeff Cotton was the guitar player at one time for Captain Beefheart.
Yeah, that's a specific era in there too. They're all at the top of their game, playing a little bit of musical chairs.
But he's been sending me guys that I didn't know of, but they had been playing with other bands and then going solo, and I'm hearing their music for the first time, and it's blown my mind. And everybody comes on and they're so gracious and they have such wonderful stories to tell, and there's always something that they've gone through that kept them going, and I know that's what inspires the people out there.
And a lot of those guys, I'm not saying those guys because I don't know, but I know a lot of people in the music industry and a lot of people who are famous in the music. The temptations and things with drugs and alcohol and excess living are there, and some of those guys and women became casualties. Many survived, but there many tales of redemption in there. And so that industry, yes, is exactly what we're talking about, is how do you take those slings and arrows and those temptations and come out on the other side?
Well, just people need to know that you don't have to give up. We go through a lot. I mean, I went through a heart attack at age 36.
Did you really?
And that was because I drank too much and I did too much cocaine. And I ended up didn't know I had diabetes, and it was making it worse. And right after I got out of the hospital, my first wife didn't know that she had been sleeping with a younger guy and left me for him. And I had a breakdown about, I don't know, 10 years later, and boom, I meet my wife that I have now, and life has turned around for the better. It just
Isn't
means there's hope.
Well, it isn't, hey, wow. I know we have limited time, and now I want to talk to you the rest of the day. I was married to my high school sweetheart, didn't work, or college sweetheart, didn't work out, didn't have kids, got married again, had kids. And that divorce was really, really difficult. I was single for 10 years.
Me too.
Just felt like I did that. It didn't work. I guess I don't have the stuff. I'm going to focus on being a father and a community member, and to show my kids what a good community member is like, to be a role model. But I thought love was out of my life. I thought, well, just struck out. And I wasn't looking, met a gal in Texas on a business trip. And we've been together for 8 or 9 years now. I should know that, or she'll get mad. It's 2014. What is that? 6, 7, 8 years ago. But like you, Kyle, the right person turns your perspective around. My life has been absolute, I don't want to say a fairy tale, or a truck will drive through that window right now, knock on wood, but it's just been the right partnership.
Yeah. That really
been the
has.
right support system. A collaboration rather than a competition.
Yeah.
So I know you know what I'm talking about because of what you just said.
Well, there is hope, and I don't want anybody to ever give up. So if I can be here today to tell this story, I know you can go on. But so are you on social media?
Well, yeah. I do Facebook, and I tweet, but I really don't know how to tweet. My kids all Snapchat and Instagram. I go look, but I'm just not any good at it. But I do Facebook. I have a blog. I have a podcast called The Gary and Kenny Show, which we put on YouTube and all the podcast channels. So there's a plug right there, The Gary and Kenny Show. And it's just a fun show, a couple of guys who are middle-aged talking about the stuff that they go through, but also talking to people in show business and things like that. So people seem to enjoy it. But yeah, I Facebook, I check that out every day because I've got 5,000 people that I can kind of go, oh, that's what you're doing. Okay. All right.
I'm with you, brother. Well, if you would send me those links, I could share them in the description.
I will do that.
Awesome.
I will do that. I will show you The Gary and Kenny Show. I have a political blog, but I know that's not your deal. It's called Gary Has Issues. But Spotify and all of that stuff where we are, for The Gary and Kenny Show, I'll send you that link, or at least the YouTube link, because that we house everything there. And we have a Facebook page, so I'll send you all that stuff.
Oh, sweet. Appreciate that. Well, and also appreciate all of y'all out there. If you stop by here, this is your first time, I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll hit that subscribe button and come back. For those of you who are regular to the channel, thank you for that support. Because of you, I get to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network